Chapter 13 of Auxiliary, Mixed and Native Troops. Auxiliary forces, which are the other kind of useless forces, are when one calls on a potentate to come and aid one with his troops, as was done in recent times by Julius, who, seeing the wretched failure of his mercenary forces in his Ferrara enterprise, had recourse to auxiliaries, and arranged with Ferrando, king of Spain, that he should help him with his armies. These forces may be good in themselves, but they are always dangerous for those who borrow them. For if they lose, you are defeated, and if they conquer, you remain their prisoner. And although ancient history is full of examples of this, I will not depart from the example of Pope Julius the what? What was it? I 20 the oh, that's 9. So that's 49. 20 is XX. And 1 XX 4 50. So 49. Pope Julius the 49th. We'll go with that. Which is still fresh. The example of Pope Julius, which is still fresh. Nothing could be less prudent than the course he adopted. For wishing to take Ferrara, he put himself entirely into the power of a foreigner. But by good fortune there arose a third cause which prevented him reaping the effects of his bad choice. For when his auxiliaries were beaten at Ravenna, the Swiss rose up and drove back the visitors, against all expectations of himself or others, so that he was not taken prisoner by the enemy which had fled, nor by his own auxiliaries, having conquered by other arms than theirs. The Florentines, being totally disarmed, hired 10,000 Frenchmen to attack Pisa, by which measure they ran greater risk than at any period of their struggles. The Emperor of Constantinople, to oppose his neighbors, put 10,000 Turks into Greece, who after the war would not go away again, which was the beginning of the servitude of Greece to the infidels. Anyone, therefore, who wishes not to conquer would do well to use these forces, which are much more dangerous than mercenaries, as with them ruin is complete, for they are all united and owe obedience to others. Whereas with mercenaries, when they have conquered, it requires more time and a good opportunity for them to injure you, as they do not form a single body and have been engaged and paid by you. Therefore, a third party that you must have made leader cannot at once acquire enough authority to be able to injure you. In a word, the greatest danger with mercenaries lies in their cowardice and reluctance to fight, but with auxiliaries the danger lies in their courage. A wise prince, therefore, always avoids these forces and has recourse to his own, and would prefer rather to lose with his own men than conquer with the forces of others, not deeming it a true victory which is gained by foreign arms. I never hesitate to cite the example of Caesar Borgia and his actions. This duke entered Romagna with auxiliary troops, leading forces composed entirely of French soldiers, and with these he took Imola and Forli. But as they seemed unsafe, he had recourse to mercenaries, and hired the Orsini and Vitelli. Afterwards, finding these uncertain to handle, unfaithful and dangerous, he suppressed them, and relied upon his own men. And the difference between these forces can be easily seen if one considers the difference between the reputation of the Duke when he had only the French, when he had the Orsini and Vitelli, and when he had to rely on himself and his own soldiers. His reputation will be found to have constantly increased, and he was never so highly esteemed as when every one saw that he was the sole master of his forces. I do not wish to go away from recent Italian instances, but I cannot omit Hiero of Syracuse, whom I have already mentioned. This man being, as I said, made head of the army by the Syracusans, Syracusans immediately recognized the uselessness of that mercenary militia, which was composed like our Italian mercenary troops, and as he thought it unsafe either to retain them or dismiss them, he had them cut into pieces, and thenceforward made war with his own arms and not those of others. I would also call to mind a figure out of the Old Testament which well illustrates this point. When David offered to Saul to go and fight with the Philistine champion Goliath, Saul, to encourage him, earned him with his own arms, which then David had retried on. He refused, saying that with them he could not fight so well. He preferred, therefore, to face the enemy with his own sling and knife. In short, the arms of others either fell away from you or overburden you, or else impede you. Charles the Eighth, father of King Louis the XI, having through good fortune and bravery liberated France from the English, recognized this necessity of being armed with his own forces, and established in his kingdom a system of men at arms and infantry. Afterwards, King Louis his son abolished the infantry and began to hire Swiss, which mistake being followed by others is, as may now be seen, a cause of danger to that kingdom. For by giving such reputation to the Swiss, France has disheartened all her own troops. The infantry having been abolished, and the men at arms being obliged to foreigners for assistance, for being accustomed to fight with Swiss troops, they think they cannot conquer without them, whence it comes that the French are insufficiently strong to oppose the Swiss, and without the aid of the Swiss they will not venture against others. The armies of the French are thus of a mixed kind, partly mercenary and partly her own. Taken together, they are much better than troops entirely composed of mercenaries or auxiliaries, but much inferior to national forces.